right, Allison, chalk one up for the good guys at the moment. I think a little bit of breaking news. Let me get you a news actuality. Are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
That's what we call it in the business. A news actuality.
Okay.
I'm about to drop it. Are you ready to have
I'm
it
ready.
dropped?
I'm
ready to have it dropped?
born ready.
A news actuality.
Yeah.
Is right here. Ready? Here we go.
Okay.
Here we go.
The ayes on this vote are 50, the nays are 46, and the joint resolution is passed. Under the previous order, the Senate will resume legislative session.
And Connecticut's own Chris Murphy presiding as the honcho in the Senate.
Mm-hmm.
Senate just joined the House in voting to strike down the Biden administration's new ESG rule that encourages asset managers to consider ESG criteria when making retirement investment decisions. Senate blocks Biden ESG investing rule. Biden vows to veto as GOP war on woke heats up. Here's USA Today. Take it as you will. In the latest in the series of efforts by Republicans to stop what they call woke investment decisions, which is what that is. ESG is your, what is it, something?
Environmental, social, and governmental factors.
Exactly. So this is how it is precisely the woke score, your woke report card. To stop what they call woke investment decisions, the Senate overturned a federal rule on ESG investments Wednesday, passing a bill that sailed through the House just a day earlier. Two Democrats crossed party lines to support the bill, West Virginia's Joe Manchin and Montana's John Tester. President Joe Biden said Monday he would veto the bill if it reached his desk. The GOP-controlled House voted Tuesday to block a Biden administration rule that allows retirement plans to consider environmental, social, and corporate governance principles when choosing investments. Last night, the House stood up and told President Biden to keep politics out of America's retirement savings. Now it's the Senate's turn, said Akash Chogul, Vice President of Government Affairs with conservative advocacy organization Americans for Prosperity.
Mm-hmm.
Labor Department rule allows retirement plans to consider. The Labor Department rule enacted late last year makes it easier for retirement plans to take into account climate change and other ESG factors. ESG is the acronym for environmental, social, and corporate governance principles. So it's on with this stuff. This ESG stuff is directly, one, this is a good thing, but this is directly World Economic Forum horse bleep. This is when the people start talking and the callers start talking about Soros, and I remove my revolver and stick it in my mouth and intended to kill myself. This is the kind of stuff that they usually say that is conspiracy stuff. It's not conspiracy stuff. This ESG stuff, they want to force companies to act woke. They want to force companies to make pretend that they have some harness or they could do something to change the climate, or to make sure that that we're all good for trans stuff and CRT and all that stuff. This is an academic, a progressive post-Marxist academic's dream that corporations be governed by this. And some of them, like BlackRock, are like big into this. The BlackRock honcho is into this. He loves it. He thinks it's fantastic.
Well, and I've heard people say, too, that in some ways it's just like smart investment decisions because, the government's going to come for places that don't do XYZ, right? So it's like, essentially saying that, like, if you don't want companies to get, if you want to invest in companies that aren't going to get screwed by, like, the future that's coming, that you would just consider those factors naturally.
Well, but that's no way to live. To see that there's a progressive dictate.
But ultimately, at the end of the day, like, I do think that a bit of that is, it's a little bit like chicken or egg. Like, we need a smaller government in general, right? Because that's what the problem is here. The problem is, like, if you wouldn't invest in a company because you're worried that it's going to be regulated out of existence by the federal government because they try and do something about climate change, like, then your problem really is with the government that has extended way too far and has way too much power. Not really, like, with the company per se. You know what I'm saying? Like, with the person who points out to you that company is not going to be a good investment anymore because the government's going to, regulate it out of existence, right? So it's like, I get the ESG score thing, but, like, we also need to not give the power to governments to do stuff that makes those scores meaningful, if that makes sense.
Well, of course, but they've permeated every level of government, every level of global corporate culture, and every level of even community administration. It's everywhere. So this, like, there's something called, let me tell you. So one of the things you might hear at the World Economic Forum or something like it is in academia, etc., in every level, is menstrual equity. Are you familiar with menstrual equity?
Does this mean that you have to put tampons in the men's room?
Among other things, yes, that's what it means.
Good.
So, for instance, I was just given and everybody, Klaus Schwab believes in this stuff. They all use the same term. It's always equity. We know this. We talked about this forever. So I was just given this West Hartford High School March community lessons because it's Women's Month, right?
Mm-hmm.
March overview. What will community look like each week? Week 2, issue focus, menstrual equity. Week 3, issue focus continued, menstrual equity. Week 5, March 29th, intersectionality, debrief, and reflection. This is in Davos. This is at Yale. This is at Harvard. This is the halls of academia. And now this is in high school.
Interesting that it's for Women's Month, too. Why do the women always get totally screwed by this stuff?
Weeks 2 and 3, menstrual equity. Stay engaged, even if you don't agree with what's being said. Recognize the risk of this type of work. Participate in a manner, this is for teachers, participate in a manner that works for you, listening, sharing, respectful use of technology. Be okay with discomfort. Understand that unlearning can be harder than the new learning.
If that doesn't sound like a re-education camp,
no
what
kidding.
does?
Respect others' learning journey. We are all different places in our learning. We need to be able to speak respectfully from where we are without fear of judgments. Accept non-closure. Things won't get resolved here. Take it away. Think, reflect, and be open to new things. What is menstrual equity? The affordability of menstrual products, access to reproductive health care. It goes on. In order to have a fully equitable... What is menstrual equity? And here's the thing. In order to have a fully equitable... These people are psychotics. And participatory society, we must have laws and policies that ensure menstrual products are safe and affordable and available for those who need them. This is part of the pink tax. The ability to access these items affects a person's freedom to work and study, to be healthy, and to participate in daily life with basic dignity. And if access is compromised, whether by poverty or stigma or lack of education, resources, it's all in our interest to ensure these needs are met. Says Jennifer. How many last names do you think she has?
At least 2.
Correct. Jennifer Weiss Wolf. Periods Gone Public, author, whatever. Highlight as, once again, menstrual equity, another chapter. Highlight as non-binary issue, human right. What is being done locally at school? Also highlight FemCause, SOWHR work. I don't even know what that means. In our community, West Hartford story, and they have a bunch of news stories to use to spread this stuff around. These people... This stuff is universal. This psychotic equity stuff is all it means. Equity means it. All you know what equity means? It means just like what they said. To unlearn, and that's what they want to do. Help your students unlearn. They've come out with preconceived notions that all people should be equal. They have these preconceived notions that only women have women's bodily functions, all of this stuff,
right,
to help them unlearn.
And then you end up calling them, because you can't say like women because that's not inclusive and equitable. Right. Then you end up calling people like bleeders and people with periods and other just gross things that reduce women to their bodily functions. So happy Women's Month, I guess.
Well, and so that goes along with, I think, that incredible video that I sent to us. It's all over the internet now. It's the number one thing, where you've got these kids in some kind of rec room with their parents. These little kids from newborns to toddlers to little kids with their parents, watching these dudes do some kind of S&M routines, wearing thongs and one dude is cranked up from
Yeah,
the
what
ceiling.
is that
twisting
video?
around.
Is that really real? Like, why would they have babies watching that? I literally don't understand what that video is supposed to be of. I need further clarification on the source of that video and what is supposed to be happening there, because I honestly cannot understand the reason why you would be having like men in thongs gyrate for literally babies in this video. I just don't
Yes,
get it.
This thing.
I'm
I mean,
confused.
this
I'm like,
thing-
what am I watching?
I know.
What's
I wonder
going on in
if
this video?
it's like AI or something, because this.
Yeah, I'm like, what is this edited?
Yeah, and nobody in that room is surprised by what they're seeing.
It's
So,
very strange.
I mean, it would seem to me, if that is true with what you're seeing, that there should be a number of arrests.
you would think.
I mean,
so.
that is a show that's 21 plus. That show.
Yeah, I would make it 21.
And it doesn't, like we said, it goes through every part of government. The ATF HQ is something you found. We talked about the ATF yesterday celebrating the massacre of 70 women, children, and men at...
Not yesterday.
oh.
Today on the radio we did.
Okay, but
Yeah.
we think we mentioned it yesterday on the show, didn't we?
No, that was
Oh, we
we
didn't?
didn't find
Okay.
it till after the show.
You really did not? Okay. Celebrating the Waco massacre in a weird context. Now the ATF is saying during Women's History Month, we recognize that women's critical role in enforcing federal laws, capturing violent criminals, and making strides in law enforcement while carrying the ATF mission. Yada, 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 yada. Why is everybody into every woke thing? The ATF, their job is to raid religious compounds and burn everybody alive in there. That's what they used to do. Now, what they do is the same thing that West Hartford High School is doing, the same thing that Klaus Schwab is doing, the same thing that the Biden ESG people are doing. They're all on a woke pilgrimage. Everybody's been taken. I mean,
Well, including like our armed forces too, not just the ones like the ATF that are targeted at the citizenry of this country, but also the ones that are supposed to defend us from stuff overseas, like China or Putin or anybody else. I mean, there are serious bad guys out there in the world
Yes.
that want to kill us, or the Taliban, everybody, and the top brass in the military is doing this ridiculous stuff. We have Mark Milley crying about white privilege in front of Congress or whatever. It's an embarrassment. It's terrible. And it's specifically designed to further purge conservatives from these organizations, from not just executive branch agencies, but also from our armed forces. And in the meantime, they're like degrading them so much. Like, I shudder to think if we were in a serious war with China over Taiwan or something.
of course. Well, my problem is, my concern is, Alice, is that we're seriously going to look for adversaries to be playing on a woke playing field along with us.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we've got, like, the Secretary of State Blinken telling the Taliban that he expects them to treat women and girls with respect.
Yeah, he wrote them a letter. Be nice to women.
Are we serious here? Like, the real world is happening out there. I understand everybody's in this progressive LARPing cycle now, but you can't have this. We can't have this. Half this country needs to snap out of this immediately, or this is just irreversible. This is irreversible. None of this stuff makes any sense. There's nobody at all 10 years ago who would have said that some dude, because he says feels more like a girl, gets to be treated like a girl in every way, and every accommodation is made to him. Everything is made to cater to him, so he has to feel no discomfort.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like crazy. You talk about Matt Walsh was mean because he yelled at Dylan.
Mulvaney.
Mulvaney,
Dylan
yeah,
Mulvaney.
they say-
Yeah. So there's a big debate about this because he, went on a few tirades about Dylan Mulvaney and essentially said, you're not a woman. You're never going to look like a woman. You're destroying anything that makes you look like a man, but with still not being anything like a woman. And you're just going to be left, I forget the exact words used, but it's like a freak that's not anything, basically, is the gist of the whole thing that he said. And, a lot of people were like, this is too mean. This is too personal. This is why people hate conservatives. You can't talk like this, blah, blah, blah. And like, I mean, I don't think necessarily like the people running for office should talk like that, but he's also not. He's a commentator and the conversation has to be driven somewhere. It's kind of like, also there was a big debate on Twitter this week about Blair White.
Right.
Did you follow this? Because she was posting like these underwear pics with
Yes.
a big gun.
Yes.
And she said, like when there's a bulge in a conservative girl's pants, it's a gun. And when there's a bulge in a liberal girls' pants. It's a you know what. But
Yeah.
anyway, but this is ironic if you don't know, because Blair White is also a conservative trans woman who's
Right.
was born a boy and is now a woman, and well, it's not really a woman, but is
As good a copy as you can come up with.
yeah. I mean, Tom was tricked by her. She's a very
Yes,
convincing
I
trans
continue
woman.
to be tricked by her. Does that make me gay?
I don't know. So this was sort of the debate on the conservative world, because a lot of like sort of the more hardcore conservative people were saying like, don't encourage this. She still goes, or he still goes in women's bathrooms. He's still part of the problem. Just because he's posting like sexy pictures and like saying the right things, like now you think he can be a woman. And a few people made the argument, which I think is an interesting point. Like, it's almost like some conservatives believe that that womanhood is something that can be earned by trans people, by like having the right opinions. Like, you're cool, like you get to be a real woman because like you look like traditionally feminine and hot, and you like agree with me on like tax rates and guns, and so like you we'll let you in the women's club. So some people were saying like no man gets to be in the women's club. Like, that's fine. Blair White can agree with us. Like, good job for calling out the groomers, Blair White, but like you're still not a woman, and like don't come in the women's bathroom, and like you're still part of the problem posting these like thirst trap pictures, trying to be a girl. Right. So I mean, and like I'm kind of two minds of this, because I kind of like Blair White actually, but on the other hand, like I kind of like Blair White is still not really a woman.
Right. Yeah. No, I understand that. I understand that. I liked Blair White because I thought she was at first, and
A woman.
Right. Yeah. And at least I don't know. I mean, I just don't have a problem with if some dude wants to make themselves into a woman, and go ahead. I just don't want kids doing it, and kids being encouraged.
Do you want Blair White like in the girls' bathroom with your daughter?
I don't think I have a problem with it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Blair White's a predator, but then
Right.
you get in particular. However, but then you're sort of saying that there's like some men that you're okay with having in the bathroom with your daughter. You know what I mean? And like,
I guess so. I just
and
don't,
like, and like, where and what now? You want to be the police of like, like how feminine is feminine enough that you're cool with it? Who's a true hashtag true trans? I don't know. It's just it was just thought provoking to me that this debate was happening.
And I appreciate you bringing that up. Blair White seems to be a chick.
Yeah.
And I would think that if crime happens in men's bathrooms, men will. I mean, there's a right answer for this, and I'm not going to have it. But men will look at Blair White and
think it's a girl in the men's bathroom.
Exactly.
And that's what Blair White has said in response to that argument is like, I've tried going in the men's bathroom and it doesn't work. Like, I have to go in the women's bathroom, which I think there's like just a simple practicality thing there.
Right.
Right. And Blair White isn't trying to like play a sport or something too, which also makes a difference. But it's just, it is an interesting sort of thought experiment, because it's like how like really, really, really trans is trans enough for conservatives, and is it ever trans enough? And like, I mean, I still ultimately disagree with Blair White's life choices at the end of the day. I mean, Blair White is not asking me.
Well, right.
And so what my opinion is on his life choices or her life choices or whatever, like, I'm not in their inner circle or whatever.
And I'm mad at Blair White because he got in a vicious fight with Candace Owens.
Oh, really?
who I love, obviously.
I don't really love Candace
That's
Owens that
terrible
much.
of you.
I mean, she's fine. I just don't like.
I understand,
I'm not
Alice. I'm sorry
particular-
she's black, okay?
That's not what it is.
That's what you're saying.
It's not what
Yes,
it
that's
is.
what you say in
no,
private.
No,
all the
that's
time.
not. I don't say that. Stop
True,
it.
True.
I
I
just-
love your cute, wincy look.
I just am not that impressed by Candace Owens, but
She's impressive.
Mm.
Yeah.
Um, she's very pretty.
We're dating, so.
Okay, well,
And
good.
Blair
I'm happy
White.
for you. I'm happy for you. And her husband owns Parler and tried to sell it to Kanye. That was good too.
You know what, Alice?
See in the chat, the Wakefield Mall says no men in women's rooms. Period. Pun intended, or no pun intended, actually. But
Alice.
I'm kidding. Okay, so
Speaking of historic first lesbians, would you like to hear KJP?
sure.
Man, they're running with that Ukraine gig for Biden. Absolutely.
Why is President Biden afraid of China?
The president is not afraid of China.
Well-
Did you see the president last week when we went to Ukraine, went to
have to
Kyiv?
look at
This
the
is not
order.
a president that's afraid of anything. It was a historic trip that many of you said was brave. So clearly, this is a president that's not afraid to go to a war zone. He's not afraid to go there when there's no military presence on the ground.
Well, the point is that he's afraid of China.
Yeah.
For some reason, he's afraid
And
of China.
the point isn't that he's afraid to travel there. We know he's not scared to like go to China. Like he
Right.
went to Ukraine. That's not what the issue is. The idea is he scared of pissing China off
Right.
in international relations?
Right. For whatever reason.
So there's nothing that this president fears.
Nothing that this president fears. We go
Once
on.
again, it's
China
not about
flew
his
by-
personal fears. It's about like, is he afraid to make them mad with our
Right.
policies?
Exactly. And Ducey will get to this.
China flew a spy craft over the U.S. The president didn't really do anything to China. And according to the FBI director, China may have created something that has killed more than 1.1 million people in this country. And President Biden is not punishing them.
So
True enough.
you're giving me two things here.
Sorry about that, Corrine. Here's the part 3 of this. Curtis Houck, by the way, did the hard work of cutting this up.
As we talk about the China surveillance balloon, the president did take that down, and he did it in a way
Yeah, after it
Crossed
zigzagged
everything.
across the country. Yeah.
that as it was on its path, we collected information from it. We protected our
This is such weak sauce. This whole thing that we collected information from it is bull bleep.
We spied on it.
Yeah, ha ha. Joke's on you as you record the terrain and the missile silos.
security information on the ground, and we did it in a way that was smart, effective, and also protected the American people. That's what the president's always going to put forth.
And
is-
that's why every subsequent balloon was shot down immediately with ferocity.
Yeah, every like hobby balloon that
Right.
got blown off course was immediately blown out of the sky by fighter jets.
is the safety of the American people. So that's what the president did with that particular issue.
Oh, man, this is a tough one.
As it relates to you're talking about the COVID origins, we've been very clear. We've been very clear that we need the data, and we need to figure out how to get to the bottom of the COVID origins, and that's something that the president has said since the beginning of this administration.
He
So
really
that none
hasn't-
of that
Yeah,
has
it
changed.
hasn't been big on
Look,
that.
as
Why aren't we to the bottom of the COVID origins yet? Why isn't this? Wouldn't this be an all hands on deck situation? Guys,
Yeah.
let's do a little bit of a task force.
Even with the origins, like what about the fact that they lied to cover it up for months?
course.
They're not in trouble for that, even if it was zoonotic.
Right. You may have saved your million people had we had any idea. The quicker we could do that, the quicker we could get the original vaccine, the quicker we could do a whole bunch of things. Like, there's nothing.
With his campaign, it was all about shutting down the virus and how hard it is for families with an empty chair at the kitchen table because of COVID. If we now know, according to the FBI director, who is most likely responsible for all those empty chairs at all those kitchen tables, why not do more to try to hold them accountable?
so I'm going to flip that on its head for a second.
Oh,
It was
so
because
so
of this
flacky. Such a flacky turn of phrase. I'm gonna
Yeah.
flip that on its head for a moment. I'm really gonna go to the mat with you on this one.
president that took action. By the way, the last administration did not. They did not have a comprehensive plan.
It's funny because like the Biden administration was relying on the vaccines that were developed by the Trump administration, and they administered them exactly on the schedule that Trump said they would be administered on. He was like, by April, everyone's going to have access to COVID vaccines. And then like they were all going, that's impossible. It's irresponsible for him to say that. There's not going to be blah, 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 blah. And then Biden's like, look, it's April and we have COVID vaccines. Nobody expected that. Like it wasn't exactly what Trump said was going to happen on the Trump plan for distributing vaccines.
Well, but also, so many people didn't take the vaccine that they had to do an unconstitutional mandate.
Right.
And fired
several
people.
Unconstitutional mandates.
Exactly. So they did everything they could.
Actually, no.
Responding to COVID, but where did COVID come from? If we know,
Peter, you can't tell. First of all, you can't tell me how to answer the question. I'm going to answer it for you, right? So just give me a second.
I'm going to answer whatever question I feel like answering.
Actions, he actually helped to save lives because he took action.
Why is the president afraid of China? He went to Ukraine.
What is he going to do about finding out where the COVID originated and holding the people responsible? He saved a lot of lives during the pandemic.
Those actions, he actually helped to save lives because he took action.
Yeah, but more people died with this guy with all the plans than did with the guy before who had no plans.
Right.
Make sure that people got shots in arms and put a comprehensive plan in front of the American people and put in the work. We actually were able to get to a place where COVID is not gone, but we now are in a place, we're in a different place in the pandemic, and that's because of the president. And that's because of his leadership. So let's be very real about what the president has done over the last 2 years to take on COVID.
I love too that she wants to spin it as like this huge Biden success story with the pandemic, but she also can't fully say that the pandemic's gone because that puts at risk all the administration's court cases, that it's very important that they force everybody to get vaccinated, and it's very important that they forgive everybody's student debt, and it's very important that they do all these things because we're still in the middle of this pandemic emergency. Like, you realize that's what the student debt stuff is based on, right? Is like that this is a pandemic emergency, and it's in the HEROES Act, which is for 9/11 first responders, to give 9/11 first responders relief from things. And so now everybody who was going to college during COVID or even had student debt during COVID
By
is
the way,
a
this
9/11
is
first responder.
And you were on the radio with me today. This is precisely what impeachment is for.
Yeah. So, and this is interesting because, I've been reading like more about this student loan thing. And now the student loan thing is obviously unconstitutional, but the thing that's like tricky in the Supreme Court is like who has standing to challenge this student loan debt forgiveness.
Somebody who's been harmed. So
So to have standing to challenge something in court, you have to show that you've been harmed. And now the Supreme Court can just throw out the whole policy, but they have to have somebody who can show that they've been harmed. And that's the question that's a little bit tricky in the courts, because I think it's very clear that at least the 6 conservatives would be very willing to throw this thing out on the merits, but they have to get to the standing place first. So, and a lot of legal experts are saying it's a little bit tricky. The best bet is, I think it's Missouri has their own student loan sort of debt service company. And that's, managed by the state, but it's unclear. So the state of Missouri is suing, and they have this, arrangement to service student debt, these federal student loans. But it's not clear that like the state has standing to sue because, that entity is still sort of separate from the state itself. And the justices were kind of asking like, well, how come that entity isn't just suing and not, the state? And so it does get tricky, like with who has standing in this. And, if it gets thrown out, it'll be on that,
Right.
And that's like really bad. And I think at that point, what should happen, like if that happens by some weirdness, and the thing that's hard is that the justices that want to throw it out on the merits are pretty much the conservatives who believe in like the separation of powers and the limitations of the executive branch. But those are also the same justices. Conservative jurisprudence for a long time has been about limiting standing so that you can't just like sue anybody. You can't take anybody to court over anything.
Right. I think Amy Coney Barrett blew up one of these lawsuits.
So she seems like the most skeptical on this standing issue of the 6 conservative justices based on the questions they were asking. But, you know, that is the big concern. But if that happens, if the Supreme Court throws out all these suits for standing, then probably that's what should happen, is Biden should be impeaced. In my opinion. I mean, like, he's not going to be removed from office because there's not 60 votes in the Senate to do it, but it's so inappropriate that he's trying to do this.
That's the only recourse that
and like
Congress
anybody
has. And today when I mentioned it, you know, somebody said, it might have even been Todd, somebody said that, well, what are we supposed to do, like impeach him every time he does this? Yes, that's how it's supposed to be
every time the executive branch usurps the power of the legislative branch, regardless of party, regardless of whether or not they agree with the stupid policy that he's doing, they should care just on the basis that he's taking power away from them, from their ability to do stuff, right? Like, they should be limiting the executive branch on their own. Of course, they don't want to do that because they're a bunch of cowards who don't want to have to vote on stuff because that's hard and scary. They don't want to have to actually vote on whether or not to pass student debt relief because that could be controversial and it could hurt them in an upcoming election. You know, they just, you know, want to vote to create an agency that can decide whether or not to do the student debt relief. And that's why we have this ridiculous bloated executive branch that does all this dumb and illegal stuff constantly.
The economy is growing again, to make sure that we're really working for the American people. So that's number one.
I'm so sick of this.
Now, to your question about COVID origins, as we know, we have seen many different conclusions, right, from the intelligence community. Some of them have made some conclusion on one side. Some of them have made conclusions on the other side. Some of them say they don't have enough information. So I want to be also very...
These are not different regimes in the executive branch. These all work for President Biden.
Right.
So come up with a freaking consensus and let's go. But they don't want to. There's nobody doing any of this. The reason we're not knowing this is because they don't want to know this, because they know that it's a lab leak. They know that the Chinese lied about it, and to kill 1 million Americans with this pure carelessness and negligence, if not just malevolence, means that we should be at some state of war right now, and they are scared bleepless to do it. And he can take all the train rides to Ukraine he wants, but this guy is scared to death, and Democrats are scared to death to openly pin the blame where it belongs, which is the Chinese Communist government.
Yeah, definitely. And they've been scared of that the whole time. You know, they were scared of that from the very beginning when it looked like this thing was going to become something. They were worried it was going to be racist to say anything about a virus coming from China. We weren't allowed to call it the Wuhan virus, remember?
Yep.
Even though it came from Wuhan. Like,
right.
I don't understand the problem with that, but okay. We weren't allowed to call it that, and then we weren't allowed to call it coronavirus, and then you know, it just shifted day after day. Yeah, first they told us all to go out to Chinese restaurants right away and celebrate the Lunar New Year because it would be racist to suggest that any disease could ever come from China. At all, lab leak or no.
Very careful there as well. And it was because of this president, very early on, the first several months of his administration, he went to the intelligence community and said, we need to figure out how to get to the bottom of this. We need to figure out how this all occurred because, who knows, we have to try and prevent any future pandemic. So that is the work that this...
Well, okay, so that was 2.5 years ago then, or 2 years ago, when he went very early on to the intelligence agencies and said, find out who did this. Can we get a progress report? Can we know now? And by the way, I think that the intelligence agency... The FBI said, yeah, it was the Chinese in the Wuhan lab. Well, there you go. Anybody in trouble?
The president did. And it included clearly the Department of Energy that has national labs. And so now they're continuing to double down and try to get to the bottom of this. Our relationship with China has not changed. It is very different, very clear, very different than how we've seen it in the last administration.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Basically.
So now they're continuing to double down and try to get to the bottom of this. Our relationship with China has not changed. It is very different, very clear, very different than how we've seen it in the last administration.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
Is that it hasn't changed. The last guy was calling them a-holes, doing tariff wars, and
He was tough on China.
yes. Why is she bragging that our relationship with China hasn't changed? It needs to change. That's
Our
the whole damn
relationship
point.
with China's great. They love us.
They've killed 1 million Americans. What does it take? It's freaking remarkable to me.
Yeah, that is one thing, because I used to be much more of a free trader before Trump. But, and like when Trump was running and stuff, it was a big thing I disagreed with him on, because I tend to think like, I'm an American. If I want to buy stuff that's made in China, like, who are you to stop me from buying stuff that's made in China or make it more expensive for me to buy stuff that's made in China? But the whole COVID thing really radicalized me on China a lot.
Your lip
because
color is awesome. Awesome.
Thank you.
I'm so glad you don't have Sam Brinton's lipstick.
Thank you.
You never, maybe one time we went out, maybe a couple months ago, and you wore like this stark, harsh red lipstick.
I did.
I like that right there. You look
I don't
great.
think I did. Yeah, everyone likes a nude. It looks a tiny bit washed out on camera, but I like it in
nice.
person.
You've always had good lips.
Thanks.
Alice, what's a condiment not made in China?
Barbecue sauce? I don't know.
Close.
Ketchup?
No.
What's a
What
condiment?
did I just use an hour ago?
Mayo?
No, Alice.
What kind of condiment? What are you talking
It's
about?
red in color. I just used it in my soup.
Oh, Chelsea Fire Wicked hot sauce?
Correct.
Yes, it's a great hot sauce. It is approved for Tom on Awaken 180.
Mhm.
Great, clean ingredients. They use sea salt for lower sodium.
This is lower energy, this billboard today.
I'm sorry.
I know, you've had a tough day. I know. Chelsea Fire Wicked hot sauce is the only hot sauce to use. I love it. I love it. Oh, I use other hot sauces too, but it's by far my favorite because it's equally as good and it's hot. It's not effing around. And by the way, we're gonna get another shipment, and I'll talk to John, and they've got some other flavors coming out. We'll talk
Very
about that as well. So
exciting.
there's more stuff happening. Anyway, they are sponsored for the Chat. And are you ready, Allison?
I'm ready.
Hi, I'm Steve from Merrimack.
Hi, Steve.
I think I was able to identify the lowest moment in the history of the Burn Barrel podcast, and unfortunately it was today's episode.
What?
Justin the Hoosier calls in with, I don't know, a 10, 15-second message about a Mexican buffet.
Yeah.
And we are then transported back in time to when Tom was apparently the Annie Leibovitz of the cruise ship industry, working as a photographer.
Big smiles, everybody. Big smiles. That's what we used to say when people were trying to have dinner. We annoyed them. A lot of people stole the pictures, and we had to hide behind plants and try to bust them.
Now you try and steal pictures when you go at like amusement parks and you don't want to have to pay for.
Yeah, I am a thief. There's no doubt about that.
Some run-of-the-mill cruise line. And as far as I can tell, the 28-minute story only at the very beginning had anything to do with why Justin called. Tom briefly mentions a buffet, and the only common denominator between the two buffets I can think is guacamole.
The word buffet.
Yeah, we were then treated to really unbelievably uninteresting stories about the hot bartender,
Ooh, Cheryl.
the racist division of labor aboard the cruise ship,
That's right.
and all sorts of other things. And while this is going on, I started making my way up to my roof. And I was going to basically, it's only a 3-story house, so I was going to have to throw myself off head first. And I didn't have I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. So then I started calling family members to see if maybe they would come over and defenestrate me, throw me out the window.
Yeah.
And none of them were available either. So fortunately, the story ended an hour later, and I got back to normal. But, wow.
I'm so glad,
What
Steve,
a-
that you made it. I appreciate
Mark
that.
the tape, as Rush would say, and send that off to the Museum of Broadcasting.
I'm
Okay?
putting that in Tom's demo reel.
Man, let me tell you about those. We used to go to Hamilton and in Bermuda, and they would get a cart and put one of the guy's name was Derek, one of the younger photographers who they were just bullied. They would put him in a cart at the top of the I used to eat conch fritters there. They would put him at the top of this hill and put him in a cart and push him down the hill so that he would die, Alice. But he never did die. But he was messed up a lot. They bullied him badly. He tried to be friends with me.
What is this?
It's true. Did I ever tell you what happened? So and then since I was an American, or as the Liverpudlian guy said, who was only like 17, because you're a fat American, they would torture me, like get my arm behind my back and like torture me, and I could see in the film processing room, in the dark room, I could just see the butt, the cherry of his cigarette coming towards me to torture me, and they'd all come over to torture me. And it was terrible. So one time, Paul Hargrave tortured me.
Maybe you should just take this to therapy, honey.
Well, no. One time I got into his cabin and I covered his bed with like chocolate and sugar, and his cabin got inundated with roaches.
Ew.
Yeah. Oh, he was.
This is not making me want to go on a cruise.
Well, it doesn't happen in the where the public's allowed to be. Anyway, I thought that he was going to take my life at that time.
Sorry, Steve, about
Back
the
in
news story.
1988.
So somebody commented on my saying I'm all in on Paul Vallis. Somebody named Bo Radley said, "Bitch, stay in Indiana," and I'm like thinking to myself, do I reply? No, I'll just let it go. They only have 22 followers anyway. What's the sense of getting in a Twitter beef?
I think no matter the
Like,
number
I
of
would go to
followers, Justin,
Chicago.
it's
I have
not
no
worth
need to
it.
go to Chicago. I'm not going to help his campaign or anything. I just think he's the best candidate for the job. Oh, boy.
Yeah, Justin, stand strong. You don't have to explain yourself to any more on Twitter. And by the
Yeah,
way, you
put
should
out
go to
whatever
Chicago.
takes you want about any city in the country.
Yes.
It's your right as an American. Just say what you want. You don't have to friggin' defend why you're allowed to talk about the mayor of Chicago. Right?
Remember when we
Say what
took
you
you out for your
want,
birthday
Justin.
and you got drunk? Remember you kept saying,
What did I keep saying?
Tommy. Say it again, like you were that night.
I don't know how I
Come
was.
on. Act drunk and just
I
say,
don't know.
Tommy.
I can't act drunk on purpose.
Yes, you can.
No,
Alice.
I can't.
You're a human being.
No, I can't.
Supposedly. Yes,
I
you can.
can only do it spontaneously. Can't
Tom,
fake it.
congratulations on your big victory on the GV bracket today.
Oh, yeah.
I
I
don't
don't
know.
understand.
Danny.
So that's
What about my victory?
I beat Vodka Guy or whatever his name was.
Dr. Vodka.
Dr. Vodka. I'm surprised I won, actually, because I'm out of favor, according to
Mm-hmm.
the patriarch of the entire movement. But you won yours too, right?
Yeah.
So what's next? Who's our next people?
I
By the way, this is a KMS. This is a Minifan bracket thing. We don't have to get
I
into
don't
it,
know.
Alice. Let's go back
I don't
to-
know who's my next
Let's go back to
people.
Danny.
I don't know.
Saw, but you and I are matching up next round, Sweet
Oh,
16,
wow.
Oh,
in the
what?
military/fat bracket.
Oh my gosh.
goodness.
Who do
I
I
don't think you
choose?
served, but
Is Danny fat?
No, he was in the military.
Oh, okay. I did not serve. I did sleep in barracks with my brother at Fort Campbell.
That must be why they have you in that bracket, honey.
Yes, that's why they have me in the bracket. I was removed by his sergeant, who then kicked us both out, made us go live in a trailer park. But no, I did not serve.
that's okay. Looking forward to a nice, strong matchup here. I think we really could be in for a knockdown, drag-out fight. So be prepared to start the trash talk. Get those Twitter videos going.
Ooh.
I'm not sure who
Hopefully
I'm
the
going to
Burn
vote for in
Barrelers
that one.
support me. I think Alice is matched up in a tough rivalry against Craig VGS.
Oh my goodness! Oh, that is going to be because he doesn't think you like him, right?
I like Craig fine.
No, I know we both like Craig, but remember when we tried to get him to come out with Montante and us? Montante said, "I don't think they like me." Why would he think that? We love him, don't we?
Yeah, of course we love him.
He's great. Yeah, he was defending pitted bulls again today. That's a tough one. Oh, that's a blood feud between you and him because you fought for the same job.
I didn't fight for that job.
Yes, you did. You didn't.
No. When Corona was getting it, I did. But
Right.
not then.
By that time, now
By
you-
that time, I had a different job, so I was all set.
feelings are not.
The feelings are fine.
No, they're
My
not.
feelings
So
are fine.
it's going to be a interesting couple of days in the Shattuck household coming from either side of the bracket, both in the field of the Sweet 16. So I'm sure everyone's hanging on every moment of the voting.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see out there.
Yeah,
Best of luck.
yeah. Bring it, Danny Billerica Punk. Right, Alice?
Mm-hmm.
No. Yeah.
Yep.
So my feeling is this: I don't like my chances against Danny. He's got too much legit KMS bona fides. He's been a ground floor ground floor guy. I've been a ground floor listener, but I haven't been like publicly. I just don't. I don't like my chances, Ellis.
Lori Lightfoot is out as mayor of Chicago. She lost her re-election bid. Oh my God. Topsy-turvy. People
Didn't
are
even
done.
make the second
Done.
round.
Tired of it. Tired of the violence. Done.
I hope you're right, Justin. Certainly they're tired of the violence in Chicago. I hope this spreads and we see more of this because this is ridiculous. Justin, very political these days. I'm all for it. All right.
I'd like to just take a moment to acknowledge a great guy,
Danny, again.
all-time Hall of Fame,
Yes.
prank caller, Minifan, and of course, burn barrel or emeritus. He's our friend Tim in Canton's undergone a tough few days, but he's once again persevered, stuck it out, and that fiery Irish gut will not allow him to stop. So we appreciate Tim, and hopefully we'll see him out there for a drink, and we can hear the whole story about what the hell happened the last couple of days.
No kidding.
This
Cheers.
is very true.
Keep on the mend, Tim, and we'll see you soon.
Hopefully we will see Tim
Absolutely.
in Canton soon.
I talked to him yesterday for
and
quite a while.
you talked to him today too, didn't you? On the phone.
Yeah, I did. But yesterday we talked about
like
his heart,
like offline.
his heart attack and all that
Okay.
and all that stuff. Yeah, it sounds he's such in good spirits. But yeah, it's very interesting. I don't want to. I'll let him tell the story if you didn't hear it. But it's in yesterday's show in WTIC as well. But it's great to see he's back. I mean, that is.
I'm so glad he's okay.
He's a talented guy. He's such a great character. Such a great guy. Great guy. And my goodness, we gotta. We're going. Although he won't. How far is Canton from? I don't know anything about Canton. It's down near like 495, near all that stuff near Connecticut, Rhode Island, probably, right? Because I do want to have.
I'm gonna go take a look.
We gotta have a get together, Alice.
It's like near Dedham.
Oh, really? Okay, it's not okay. It's not what I thought. Okay, we got to have some kind of a thing here. We got to do a thing, or maybe we should see
And
about.
like Sharon and Stowe.
Do we see about going to Portland, Alice? But that's
yeah,
not our
it's
thing.
more
That's
on the
their-
way to Providence than it's on the way to Connecticut.
Okay, got it.
Very glad to hear that Lucy is going to be part of the show going forward.
Hey,
Speak of the devil.
that's the man himself, Tim in Canton. Here we go. All right.
There we go.
Very glad to hear that Lucy is going to be part of the show going forward, even though, as Tom had said, she has no clue about this. Just a word of advice, though, T. Kidnapping is not technically mean that she's part of the show.
It's
Just
worked
saying.
for Tom so
Be careful.
far.
Ooh, Alice, nicely done. It would be my second concubine, or
Second kidnapping / co-host.
/ wife. That's right. I think she was great. I didn't know what to expect. I thought she was great. But no, you won't believe me, Tim, because you just won't. But I do not think in that way about her. And I know I've objectified many women on the show, but I don't. What have I said about her else?
You don't personally find her that attractive.
No, well, don't say that. That's harsh in case she hears.
Sorry, I think she's really lovely.
I think she's lovely too, Alice, and feminine and all that stuff and fun,
Mm-hmm.
but she's not my thing, is what I'm saying.
How old is she, do you think?
I don't know, 30, 29, 24, I don't know.
I don't know either. But anyway, she must be younger than us, or at least just cooler than us, because we were looking at her Twitter and we learned the word fit check from her.
I'm doing fit checks starting next week.
That's good. You can do the hashtag Awaken180 hashtag fit check.
Absolutely, Alice. It's a new me.
Thank you so much for listening. You can send us your fit checks anytime. Just at Burn Barrel Pod on Twitter, at Alice Shattuck, at Tom Shattuck. If you want to be in on the live streams and the live chat. And
Hey,
that
by the
type
way,
of
hold
stuff,
on,
Okay.
Alice, hold on.
Okay.
Jeez, I already got in trouble once today with my company. She is a coworker of mine. I am distancing myself from what I said. I'm not judging anybody's looks, etc. I'm just saying that this is a. I'm so done. Well, you know what? I had a good run. I didn't.
You
say anything-
asked me what you said about her.
I know, but what I've said is that if they think that this person, my coworker and colleague at my company, is an object of special affection, that is not true. I thoroughly enjoyed her on our.
It was very professional.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I'm safe, right?
Very professional.
Am I okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Once again, thank you to everybody who listens to the Burn Barrel, which hopefully does not include Lucy Bird. And
what are you saying that for? Hold
and-
on again. This is a colleague of mine.
I know, she's a wonderful, lovely colleague of yours.
So why are you saying you don't want to include
No,
her?
she can be included in the Burn Barrel. I just hope she doesn't listen to this one.
Oh, yes. Yes. Good point. Sorry.
Anyway, if you want to listen to the Burn Barrel, you can find it at burnbarrelpodcast.com. You can do Patreon extra stuff at patreon.com/burnbarrel. But
Am I
of course,
obviously, I'm hot.
You can find the show for the most part on like all the different platforms at burnbarrelpodcast.com, YouTube, Rumble, blah, 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 all those places. Social media at burnbarrelpod, facebook.com/burnbarrelpodcast.
C'est la vie.